What's up, guys? Welcome to Bookworm. I've got my book, I've got my notes. Let's get started. Last week we talked about The Intelligent Investor, Benjamin Graham's book. So today we're going to cover it. Read this one over. I read it actually prior to the weekend, so it took me a little bit longer than a couple of days. It's a pretty big book. But in the book, right in the preface, there's a guy who basically helped with the appendix and the introduction to the book. His name is Jason Zweig, or Z-W-E-I-G. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but he gave a really good intro about who Benjamin Graham is. And I just wanted to kind of read a few words that he put in. I thought it was spot on. So, the greatest practical investment thinker of all time. Prior to Benjamin Graham, money managers behaved much like a medieval guild, guided largely by superstition and guesswork. Superstition, guesswork, and arcane rituals. Graham's security analysis was the textbook that transformed these practices into a modern profession. Benjamin Graham was born 1894, he passed in 1976, and the very first publication of this book was 1949. Just to kind of give you an overview of this book, this one dives into basically the mindset of the investor or the would-be investor. So if you're thinking about going into the stock market, or you're just wanting to start investing, small, big, swing arm, long-term, short-term, whatever you're trying to do, this is probably, if you talk to anyone, this is probably the first book they would recommend. This is largely considered by many as the greatest investing book of all time, and it always has been. I think it's been through like anywhere between 4 and 6 republications. This one actually has an intro, I guess, by Warren Buffett, and there's also an appendix. That's done by Warren Buffett as well. So in this book, you learn about some really big topics like investing versus speculation. So are you truly investing? Have you truly did everything that you need to do to know whether or not your investment is a wise decision? And that's talked about throughout the book. I mean, there's a chapter called Investment versus Speculation, but it's pretty much the main, I would say, one of the main ideas of the book is training people how to think like an investor rather than just someone who's wanting to go in and just make $1 million in a stock market. Another big topic is the margin of safety. Building in a margin of safety as you're doing your calculations and you're trying to see what a company's worth, literally worth to you versus what it's valued at in the stock market, creating what a safe margin is to you before you actually go in and invest in that company. Another big topic is defensive investing, which is great. Graham lays it all out and explains it perfectly. So he goes in depth, gives personal stories and things like that, and what makes a good investor and what makes a good defensive investor. In Buffett's intro or preface, he basically says that the 2 big chapters for him were chapters 8 and chapters 20. This is coming from Buffett, so he's one of the greatest investors of all time. I read the whole book, but if I was to recommend, I think, I don't know what it is, maybe it's just something in my head, but I always think you should at least read the first chapter of a book. So I would recommend, if you're not going to read the whole book, I know some people like to speed read and they just like to go through books and just read chapters they think are important, which I'm not against it. I just prefer to read a whole book. I feel like I'm going to miss something if I don't. But I would say chapters 1, 8, and 20 at minimum. But this book is huge, and I would say that if you don't read the whole book, you are going to miss some very important factors in regards to being an investor. If you're just wanting to check it out just to see what Graham has to say, maybe 3 chapters is fine. But if investing is something you're wanting to get into, I would read the whole book. It's well worth it. It's a big book, but it's worth the read. I think when Buffett was 19, it was 1950, Buffett actually picked this book up and read it for the first time. And he says, he's read it several times since then, and he keeps a copy close by at all times. And if you didn't know, Buffett actually worked under Graham. He was a student of Graham's at university, and then he worked for him pretty much like an apprentice. And now we all know Buffett's probably considered the greatest investor to date. Right up there with Benjamin Graham. Many people would say he was better, but Graham was probably, as far as laying it out and going into detail, Graham was probably, if they were both to write a book, if Buffett was to write a book on investing, I think he would even agree he couldn't write one better than this. So that, I guess that would be my point. But awesome book. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. If I was to truly rank it, I would give it 6 out of 5 stars. I mean, this is the best book you're going to get on investing. And there's many other books out there, of course, that you can get that are going to give you really good insight. But to be an investor, I think it takes a certain mindset, and this book is going to guide you into how to think, to truly think the way you need to think to be a successful investor. So that's what I have on this book. Awesome book, big book. I personally may read it again once or twice, not anytime soon. But it is a great book, and if I ever get more into investing or trying to diversify my own portfolio, this is a book that I'm probably going to go back to, and I'll probably just dig through certain chapters to look at securities and bonds and things like that, and see what Graham's approach to those things were. This is the type of book that's going to last through the ages. I mean, published in 1949, today's 2016, and this is still the best book on the market. So it's probably always going to be timeless as far as I can understand. And as far as next week's book, so leaving with Benjamin Graham here, I thought it would be a no-brainer to go ahead and move into this book. So this is Warren Buffett's Warren Buffett's book, The Snowball. It's actually called The Snowball and the Business of Life, and it's actually written by Warren Buffett and Alice Schroeder. We're going to go into pretty good detail on this book come Friday. This book is awesome. It's actually a fun read. Like, The Intelligent Investor was really getting into the nitty-gritty and what it takes to be an investor. This one, it goes into the business side of Buffett's life, but it also goes into more of his personal life, day-to-day, vacations, things like that. So this book was a fun read. The Intelligent Investor was a little tougher for me just because it's so technical and it's just, it's all meat. This one's a little more fun to read. So this one I could read again easily. So this is next week's book. So if you have this book, I highly recommend go ahead and taking a peek at it, open it up. If you don't, I highly recommend picking it up, and then come Friday, we will review it. I'll go over this one. So if you don't get your hands on it, that's okay. I'm going to give you everything that you need to know on whether or not you want to decide to purchase this book. Awesome book. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video.